All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, and athletic director. And this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. You're not going to find a better show if you want your information quick and to the point. This is it. Your NBA information, I should say. If that's your first time listening, welcome. We're really, really glad you found us. This podcast was born out of the content of Steve's 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 15 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article, where he shares his thoughts after both the NBA Finals and NBA Draft Day are over. Lots to talk about, even though now we're in the off season. Steve, are you ready?
Ready.
Start the timer, and we're off. All right, we'll start with the champs, the Oklahoma City Thunder / Seattle Supersonics. The team with the best record proved they were the best team. It happens. It doesn't happen as often as you might think, but it happened this season. Second season in the row. Boston did it last season. I'm going to ask you now, how many championships do you think the core team in Oklahoma has in them? Because you called out in your article, they're a young team, well-run team. What do you think? Is this a dynasty?
I don't know, you call it a dynasty, but I would expect that they win at least one or two more.
Wow.
Unless something crazy happens. They've got such a great core. The three guys are great. They're not even close to being at their peak yet. And they did something very interesting that people, I don't know if they noticed. Each of those guys don't appear to want to play in the limelight. By that, I mean playing in New York or Los Angeles. They're happy playing in a little market. And I don't know, as long as they get paid, I don't know if those guys yearn to go to a big marketplace. The biggest problem that team is going to have is that an apron. And when they go over that, I don't know if the owner wants to pay that money. And because let's look at it, you got to figure Holmgren and Williams are going to be max players. So now you got three max players, and you're going to be in trouble. Hartenstein's getting a lot of money. There's a lot of money going out, and that could be a problem. And don't forget, they come at you in waves where they have 8 or 9 guys. They might not be able to keep a lot of them also because they're going to want their payday. So that's the only detriment. But again, and if you really study in the way the NBA is shaped now, how to build a team, you do it the way Oklahoma's done it. They didn't sell all their, like Milwaukee to win a title, traded everything, had nothing left, draft picks or anything. They still have a bunch of draft picks they got from trades, as well as their own picks. So
right.
If they can draft guys that can help them, they can continue to replenish. And if they do that, look out, because then they can just go on forever.
Yeah. So you questioned dynasty, which is, it's subjective, right? And I think there've only been a few dynasties. The Boston Celtics, of course, 50s and 60s. That's a dynasty. What do you think a dynasty is? And again, it's subjective. That's not written anywhere. But what do you think it is? I'm curious.
It's not. I guess winning 3 in a row would be the start. Maybe 4 out of 5. Okay, but the difficult thing in today's game. Well, here a year ago, if we thought about it, would we have thought Tatum would go down? Would we have thought the Celtics would blow 2 games against the Knicks in the first 2 games of the playoff series? And well, we wouldn't have, because it's a championship tested team and all that good stuff they say, and they would figure out how to win those close games. But and then Tatum went down. Now, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but God forbid, in the playoffs, if an Oklahoma City key contributor goes down, and I don't want to see an Achilles, but that changes the whole thing. And the modern players, and I don't quite know why. I know the NBA is going to start looking into this about the Achilles, but the modern players seem to break down more than they did years ago.
Yeah, which is a good segue. It's a horrible subject, but a good segue. Let's talk about Halliburton, right? He was, losing him obviously was hard on the Pacers, hard on the NBA for reasons you just mentioned. One of 3 stars with a torn Achilles. So much there because Kobe went down with an Achilles. Lots of great players have. And I saw this actually wasn't something I shared with you. We talked about what we're going to talk about before the show. I didn't share this with you, but it's related. I was scrolling through TikTok or Twitter or X not too long ago, and I saw something about how, it's weird that back in the 70s and 80s, we didn't see torn Achilles, right? And they were playing on crappy Converse shoes, that were not as good as the ones today. Now, you could argue they're better athletes today, they're pushing their body a little bit harder, but it is weird, this rash of Achilles injuries. So I want to ask about that, but let me ask the question, and then maybe you can answer both. I would love to get your thoughts on both. But okay, so back to Halliburton, right? He was down. We know that it was heartbreaking. But did you know that he led the entire team, both teams, in made 3-pointers? He'd make 3 in the 7 minutes he played. He was on a tear. So I got to ask you, because I'm curious again, just subjective, but if he wasn't hurt, knowing that he was on the tear that he was, do you think the Pacers are the champions?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I think it would have been a closer game, but I don't think so. I think he's not going to do this all night. What's he doing? Yeah. Maybe he would have lifted his team, and maybe, but I thought Oklahoma City was there to win the game and would win it. I wanted to just comment on the Achilles thing. And the only thing I thought about this, the only thing I can see or think about, going back, you said the 70s, around my time, but athletes grew up, good athletes played 3 sports. And back then we didn't have soccer. We just started something. Yeah. We went to school.
Right.
We did have football, basketball, baseball, or wrestling, but I don't think, we're talking about. Yeah, people did. But the point being, the playing basketball year round, as much as these young people do today, and more families are, if the kid has talent in one sport, they give up the other stuff. So having said that, you almost wonder if you're utilizing the same muscles or the same, that maybe that's wearing the body down. Because Jason Tatum was Drew Hanlon, who's a known trainer for many stars, basketball players. Tatum was getting, I believe Hanlon was working with him when he was a teenager, early, 13, 14 years old in high school. Yeah. So they're doing drills and things the same to play basketball. That's the only thing I can figure on that. And I don't want to go off the topic, but think about baseball. Pitcher's arms. I mean, if you don't get your, if you don't get the operation, the time everybody, when is it coming? Some guys, but don't forget, those guys are just playing baseball, and they're playing it all year now, especially in the South and in the way, in California where it's warmer. So they're pitching more and more. And maybe we're overusing those muscles, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting perspective. I love when we talk baseball. We both have an affinity for that sport as well. And I can't help but think of Nolan Ryan, right? I think he was 45, 44 through 130 pitches and no hit the Montreal Expos or something. I forget who. Yeah. Come on. I mean, as a 40-year-old, he threw 130 pitches. You don't let a rookie throw more than 50 today. The game has changed.
Going back in my working years, I was an athletic director for about 5 years. Back in the early 2000s, we were just beginning to see athletes, and this was a small high school. We were just beginning to see athletes play one sport, or a family wanting them to only play one sport. And it was difficult because if you had a good athlete in a small school, you got to get them to play every sport. So that was the beginning of where we are now. And also that was the beginning where trainers were coming in to work with the kids. And now you see it all the time. The kids got talent. I guess every family wants to cash in. Don't forget, in the 70s, they didn't make the money they're making now. So a family sees the chance that, whoa, this is generational money. So I kind of understand it, but
no, I get it. Great, interesting point, man. All right, let's pivot. Let's talk about the draft. Now, a lot of interesting picks. One was in New Orleans, Derrick Queen. He's a 6'10", 20-year-old center who averaged 16.5 points, rebounds to assists in his only year in college. And now he holds Joe Dumars' job in his hands. You posed the question. I'll ask you, what was Joe Dumars thinking?
The more you think about it, it took incredible courage to do that.
True.
He is so convinced that this guy will be great. And that's, this isn't a top 5 pick. So it really, I don't know. And the other piece to this really astounding to me, unless there's a follow-up, now you got 2 4s, 2 guys to play the 4. Both pretty good players. If Queen is good, you got So how are we going to do this? What exactly, minute-wise, how are we going to divide this up? And so it really is an interesting deal, unless he's planning the deal's iron. But the point being, it just doesn't add up in a lot of ways. I don't know what he saw that 98% of the rest of the scouts didn't see, and the rest of the teams didn't see, because if he was that good, somebody would have taken him early. So, it's hard to understand. But the kicker in that, as I wrote, was Milwaukee and New Orleans.
Yeah.
The Atlanta gets the better of the two. In other words, the team with the worst record, they get. Now, Milwaukee's a Giannis injury or a trade of Giannis away from being a lower lottery team. Sure. And New Orleans, after last year, they won 21 games. I know everybody got hurt, but they won 21 games. DeJounte Murray, God only knows when he comes. So it really, it's really a wild trip. Like, they couldn't get him for less. That's what, this wasn't a top. So that's the piece.
Yeah. As soon as I heard the news, I immediately thought of Jerry West going all in with Kobe Bryant, right? This is somebody he wanted, but he didn't give up what Joe Dumars gave up for Derrick Queen. Things worked out okay for the Lakers and KB and Kobe Bryant. But we'll see. Jury is out on Derrick Queen.
But don't forget, the NBA back then, the first round pick, the early pick, wasn't as valuable as it is today. And the thing I thought about, I'm going back in my memory, Will Chamberlain, when he got traded to the Lakers, there was no draft picks involved, I believe. There was this is what, 1968. But and there was 3 players, I believe. One, I'm trying to remember, but you have it.
Daryl Imhoff, Jerry Chambers, and Archie Clark.
Archie Clark was a good player. He was the best part of that deal. Who was the third guy? Jerry Chambers. Yeah, Chambers was really a journeyman, never really made it. Daryl Imhoff was a center. Now, Daryl Imhoff would play with the Lakers when Boston would beat them every year, when basketball was fun. They would, he was their center. Russell naturally had an easy time with him. Imhoff played with a lot of teams. Archie Clark was a player. But look at that. You're trading 3 players. Clark was an all-star borderline type player, but a good player. But the point being, you're trading 3 guys who were unquestionably the best guy in the NBA.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, how things have changed.
Yeah. Wow, that's wild. That's wild. I think, you could certainly win a bet or two asking how many draft picks were involved in the Will Chamberlain trade when the answer is 0. But we're running out of time. Let's talk quickly about an interesting basketball team, an interesting franchise, the Atlanta Hawks. They're good, but they never stay good for long. You've got them being potentially pretty good next season. You call them a sleeper in the Eastern Conference. So I asked 2 questions, really, and why?
Well, first of all, to become a legit sleeper, a guy who doesn't play a lot has to play a lot. Porzingis. You got to look at things here, and you got to realize Dyson Daniels is legit, and he's going to get better.
100%.
Willie Young. Jalen Johnson is legit, and he was out for a lot of the end of the year, and he's going to be back. Good defender. And Reece Shea can play. He's out of his rookie year, so he'll get better. So now you've got those 3 who are legit. And if Porzingis is there, Congo's a nice backup center, real good backup center, actually. And also Paris LeVert, they're trying to re-sign. If they keep him, you got a little bit of a bench. Now you've got something going. If all those things come together and there's no injuries with Porzingis, they're not an easy team to play against. Yeah. There's some talent. I didn't even talk about Trae Young And what they did,
Right.
what they did by getting Porzingis, remember, two bad defenders, you lose. They only have one. It's Trae Young, and you've got Porzingis on the back line, who's pretty good at taking away teams from going to the basket. So
Yeah.
it's there, but you're going to need some luck.
Yeah. Yeah. And every NBA team needs a little bit of luck. And I'm looking at their pick. Asa, don't know much about his game, but his stats look good. 6'11" forward, tall, lanky guy. So, we'll see if he gets any run too. But yeah, interesting. I want good things to happen in Atlanta. They've had a dry spell for some time. Be good to see something good happen out there. All right. Well, you heard the buzzer go off. That's it. Our time is up. Thank you as always for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We'll link it wherever you are listening or watching this today to get more thoughts on his thoughts on the NBA Finals and the draft. We'll see where things go from here. Last offseason, Steve and I did a really interesting recap of, not a recap, but a review of some of the old time. Sorry, Steve, no offense. But some of the older players, right? As some of y'all may not be familiar with. Archie Clark is a name I'd never heard of. It'd be interesting to do a deep dive personally into Archie Clark. We're not sure what we're going to do this offseason yet, but please follow us along our socials at thepeachbasket.net. We will keep you up to date there as to when we will be together again. It may be next week. We'll just have to see how things go. But regardless, enjoy your off season. As always, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting. All that stuff matters to us. And again, remember, follow us on socials at thepeachbasket.net to make sure you join us again next time on the Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of random NBA thoughts anywhere. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.